And that's why you have had us engage a couple of gears and get agitated. We last were with them on Thursday, last week, and we notified them of meeting them again on Tuesday, to which there was no objection. On Tuesday morning, we sit waiting for them, and then at 10:30 a letter is brought asking for us to reschedule. We thought that that was very irresponsible, and as a committee, we felt taken for granted. We are human beings, Honorable Minister. We are understanding. We know that these entities have work to do, but also emergencies can arise, or whatever the case might be. So when somebody wants to have a rescheduling for one reason or another, we are understanding, yeah? But when the request for reschedule comes when the meeting is already ongoing, and the request is not entailing an emergency, it was pre-planned activities, we ask, so why were we not informed on Thursday? Busy people, as you know, and as chairman, it's not usually a very easy task for me to whip them to come. So when I get them here early, and then a witness doesn't show up, they feel agitated. They feel disrespected, and I don't blame them. So we think it's important that you call your troops to order. Because if we can ask you to come and you show up on time, you're the minister. I got a letter from the Ministry of Finance asking for a rescheduling. It did come in very good time, but at least it hasn't come this morning. So if the ministers can do this, I don't know what is wrong with your staff. So that's a matter that we thought we should put to your attention. We also discussed something which I said when the minister comes, we shall ask him to clarify. We saw in the press, yourself, Honorable Minister, seemingly castigating the work of this committee. You did say that we are pulling down individuals, I suppose referring to the CEO of Uganda Airlines, that we are spending a lot of time trying to pull down individuals. You are a member of parliament, you're a minister, you know the work of committees such as this one, and you know our mandate. So when I saw that video with yourself, I didn't read, I saw. I thought, okay, now that the minister will come, we shall ask him to clarify. Does he imagine the work we do is not relevant? It is just witch hunt trying to pull down individuals? We thought it would be good to get clarification from you, sir, on that issue. So I thought let's begin with that quick housekeeping and then we get to the deeper issues.
Members, first of all, I would have been, well, it hasn't happened, but I would have been happy and preferred that I would appear with my counterparts, the Minister of Finance, because we are the two shareholders now of Uganda Airlines. But that is not here, it's okay. We'll do what we can, and I hope we'll be able to appear to on time. Indiscipline, quote unquote, of my team from Uganda Airlines, where they have decided, where they didn't give you enough time when they were requesting for scheduling of the meeting. Thirdly, I want to be on record that I know and I appreciate the work of this committee. It's not the first time I've come before this committee. It's not the first time that this committee has helped me or helped the country to shape the institutions in this country. Honorable Chair, you remember I was here for the Entebbe Airport. I was here for URC. So there is no way I would demean the functions of the committee. Again, as a member of parliament, I know what the committees do. And that's why I endeavor, like now I have two committees. I'm supposed to go to infrastructure committee at the same time this committee. But I had to apologize for the other committee I sent to my junior. That's why I must always be on time on any committee. And if I will not be able, I normally communicate in good time. So I can't be demeaning the work of the committee. I want that to be on record. And I never. My clip, I wish I could replay it. I was talking about media, and I did, very clearly. I said the media, and I have no apologies with that. I said the media, we are spending a lot of time. If you allow, I could play the tweet, because it's here on record. And about my appeal was to all Ugandans, that let's try to be proud of what we have. Let's try to not to downplay our own institutions. Let's not try to kill the institutions which we have. That was my appeal. And Honorable Chair, it's not I don't think I'm the only person with that kind of opinion. I read an article in the Monitor on Tuesday by Sengoba. He was writing about the same thing, the same stuff. I saw Honorable Mukura on TV talking about the same thing. Let's try to promote. I'm not saying the committee should not do its work. Definitely, it must do its work. And that's a given. I can't take away the authority of the committee. This is paramount. So I totally want to, if I was misunderstood when I was making my appeal for people to stop tweeting and trying to malign the institution, I would say I'm sorry for that. But my intention was to make people feel that this airline is their asset. It's not a personal airline, it's a national asset. It's everybody, should be everybody's pride. That's what I was talking about. And I would still call on Ugandans to do that. Yesterday, I think some of you saw the tweet by a white man who picked something, I think it was an old airline, a junk of the Uganda Airlines, and was saying this is Uganda Airlines. And instead of us maybe even deleting it, it went viral. And that's not true. Yeah, the Honorable Chair, I don't know whether you saw that tweet. This was a white man who was talking all kinds of terrible things about the country. And he used an image of an old airline, a junk. I don't even know where he got it, because it's not even in Entebbe. And so these are the kind of things I was saying. We don't need to be like propagating this kind of information or which affects our airline. So that was my call, and I'll continue calling on Ugandans. Yes, as I said, we have issues. Totally. I don't deny. I have the auditor's report, sir, as you invited me. In respect of the auditor's report, we acknowledge this report. But I also want to say that Uganda Airlines, as of now, we may call it a state-owned enterprise, but that is not what it is meant to be. When it is being established, it is supposed to be a purely business enterprise. And as of now, much as we are holding 50-50 shareholding between me and Minister of Finance, formed on behalf of Ugandans, we are very hopeful that as soon as Uganda Airlines breaks even, shares will be floated for Ugandans to buy share in the airline. So this is not a parastatal. It's not like URC. It's not like Civil Aviation Authority. This is a company with, as in the Companies Act. That's how it was established. It has a board. It has a management. And so issues of accounting, it's self-accounting. And that's why the Auditor General goes directly to talk and work with the Chief Executive Officer. So this is what I can say as of now. But again, I want to reiterate that I did not, and I never meant to belittle the committee. Never. The issue of saying we could have this in closed session, like some of those sensitive issues, maybe it's because of the background where I came from, in the military. We used to have so many closed sessions on issues which were thought to be highly of national importance. That's why I was saying, yes, we could go deep and investigate deep, but it could be done in a closed threshold. So that's my submission on those housekeeping issues, and I will submit.
Thank you, Accounts Committee. And so we do the work on behalf of the public that invests money in entities such as Uganda Airlines. And that's why we do the work that we do. Of course, many other people might say certain things. You have mentioned, whether it be writers and the politicians. Sometimes we might not be that bothered by what they say, but those who are within the precincts of this institution, we think that it's important that what is said out there does not be seen to demean the work of Parliament. So I'm glad you have made that clarification. Again, just for clarity, we do this work not because we want to destroy these entities. No, we do this work because we want to establish what is the problem. How then do we fix the problem? When you go to a doctor, before they treat you, they first open up if it's a wound, You don't cover it up and say, just give me treatment. They need to establish what exactly. They need to diagnose and then find the remedy. That's why we do what we do. We want these entities to be able to function. And as you have mentioned, the Auditor General's report raises so many issues. And that's why we pick interest. We have 121 entities under us as a committee. Truthfully, we are not able to interact with all of them, given the time frame. You have just, a few months. So when we start with those which we think are ailing, at least according to the Auditor General's report, we want that action gets to be taken. We want things to happen the right way. And we are waiting, for example, for a Treasury memoranda on Uganda Railways Corporation, on Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. We did release our reports. We want to know as Parliament our recommendations, what actions have been taken to see to it that these entities get to function the right way. You remember we made a case for Uganda Railways Corporation to say these people, they should be paid. That cannot be said by people who want to destroy the entity. Yes, we shall call them to order, put their heads on the chopping block where things need to be fixed, but we vouch for them. And we want to see how we can vouch for Uganda Airlines after we have dealt with the issues that need to be dealt with. Let me not dwell so much on that issue. I want us to now dig deep into issues, some raised by the Auditor General's report. As a committee, our mandate is wider than just the Auditor General's report. When you read our rules of procedure 159C, when an entity is under us, we are responsible for playing an oversight role to see that this entity is healthy. So some issues are raised by the Auditor General's report, some might not, but we dig up, When, for example, we meet some staff members of some entities who say there is a problem here, we are suffering here as a committee, help us. It might not be in the Auditor General's report, but it is within our mandate to establish what is happening here. How can we deal with it? So that's why we are here and doing the work that we are doing.
Clarification, Mr. Chairperson.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. It would be comfortable to have some of these discussions held without the cameras present. Even in the clip that is making rounds, it is what you are referring to. You've as well hinted on the same now. We would like to know what are those issues that you find not fitting to be taken to the public, this being a public institution. Because for you not to be misquoted, for someone not to think that maybe you are covering up something, what are those sensitive issues that you think Ugandans are not supposed to know in the due course of the investigations being made?
Yeah, sure. Then the media is here, so I'll have to say to them. So I will have not achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I pray that maybe at some point, if you allow, we could have some depth discussions on this matter.
Would someone take it for a cover-up, Mr. Honorable?
Let's do this. I suggest we don't dwell so much on this issue. Now that we are here, we have limited time. Only one point. there is particular information that the minister wants to avail to us. And because it's his right, like any other witness, you know, a witness might say, Honorable Chair, I want to be truthful about certain issues, I want to give information, but I'm afraid I can't say it with the cameras around. Any witness can say that, and we have had witnesses ask for that, and we allow, and we say, okay, maybe keep that for the tail end, we shall ask the media to leave, and then we get that information, because we also want the information. You know, if a source says, I want to be protected, I want to tell you, but I'm not able to tell you when the cameras are here. It's also in my interest as the chairperson to get that information. So, if at any one time there is any particular information that you think you want to provide, you let us know, and then we can request our friends to give us some time. So, we'll work that as we keep moving. Honourable Minister, we wanted to understand, now that you're confirming that Uganda Airlines has 2 shareholders, and that's as of now. That's Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Works, not Minister of Finance and Minister of Works. And it will be important that we get some of that documentation. We don't have it, which stipulates ownership. You know, I hope we can get it soon enough so that we know. There's too many rumors out there. Our duty is to understand and get the truth. So now that you're here, we want to get this information. People think now this Uganda Airlines, who exactly owns it? I'm sure you read these things. We must get to know. So we should understand and get those details. What would you say is the role of these 2 shareholders, now that you represent one of the shareholders, the ministry for which you're minister?
Thank you. But when this company was being set up, I think it had to follow the Company Act, the company regulations. And at that time, because we could not put it, as I said, we can't put it out there for shareholders, people to buy shares in that company. Very few, if any, would buy a share in a company which is not even breaking even. So the legal mind advised that we set up a company. We set up a company in the name of Uganda Airlines Limited, which was registered as a company on the 30th of January 2018. And the Attorney General guided on these matters. Parliament also passed that provision. And that's why now it became a company. And that's how we come to, as of now, as I said, hold 50-50 shares for and on behalf of Ugandans. The documentation, we'll be able to bring it to the committee. My PS will be able to do that. But PS, you can add on this.
Chair and members, please appoint the board and discipline the board as well. And also they take decision on important matters affecting the company during the annual general meeting or extraordinary meetings.
Okay. Yes, Honorable Zibama.
Maybe I should be coming in at this moment, but in terms of governance, so this is an area where I think I can claim some bit of it.
Honorable, if you could pull the microphone a bit closer.
So in terms of governance, when you look at whatever is happening at Uganda Airlines, it's like the board has no powers. And the Honorable Minister and the PS.
Chair, is it the board or the shareholders?
No, the board. Yes, essentially I can talk about a few matters we have reviewed here. In the matter of now the CEO, so if you look at the minister's directive, whatever the source of the directive, for you to communicate it, it's like now you giving instructions.
Maybe if we take it this way, because I wanted us to move to that issue. See, there might be a contradiction, including that
because
issue.
the PS, well, maybe just want to send the impression that there is a functioning limited liability company. And you're saying your role is about policy and supervision. That's not true. Maybe we'll look at what is going on. It's not true at all.
Okay, picture of the shareholders. What would you stipulate is the role of the board, plus its powers and so on?
gives direction to the management of the company. They appoint the CEO and other senior staff. They exercise disciplinary control over the CEO and other staff. They approve the budget and work plans.
Who has top management?
It's the board.
It's the board. It's the board.
Yes.
Okay. Top management. That's well up to what level? What positions?
Of course, there are different levels. There's the CEO. There is the head of finance. Then we have the chief pilots and all that. These are the top. The commercial manager, the cargo manager. These are some of the positions. But we can give you the whole list of the top management.
Okay, of course, we're trying to understand, how people take up positions of management. And one of the concerns was the position of CEO. And in the explanation of the board, in seeking to recruit a chief executive officer, CEO, they hired a company, PricewaterhouseCoopers, paid them 98.1 million shillings to do this job. Now, an advert was put out for those who were interested in this position of CEO to apply. 2 days to the expiry of the deadline of this advert, the board got a directive, a communication from you, sir, indicating a directive for somebody to be hired. That's Jennifer Bamuturaki, to be hired substantively. In other words, the recruitment process should be dropped and all of that. And when we asked the board why they did that, as opposed to following the procedure as they had been, they said, "What did you want us to do?" That was the question actually asked to myself by the board at the time. They were in the committee. So I wanted to understand from your perspective, because they seemed to say their hands were tied. They were following a process, but then a directive came to short-circuit that process and hire someone substantively. Talk to us about that.
Honorable Chair and members, and the Constitution spells out powers of different organs. The President, under Article 98 and 99, it gives him powers to exercise. If the President has authority to appoint a Governor Bank of Uganda, to appoint a Chief Justice, to appoint a CDF, to appoint an IGP, to appoint a Commissioner General of Prisons, what authority would I challenge his appointment of a mere CEO of an enterprise when he's exercising his powers?
Maybe for starters, what was the exact communication of the President?
Request that at an opportune time, sir, you interact with the President and find out read his mind, and maybe ask him what led him to make that decision.
What was the communication of the President?
Yeah, there were earlier communications even before then. In April 2021, the President communicated after getting, again, using his machinery and government machinery. He had got information about mismanagement of Uganda Airlines. He communicated to me to suspend the board and also the top management, and appointed in acting capacity Jennifer Bamuturaki and Mr. Wegoi. And that was done. But also in his communication, he had indicated that we should find we should put out an international tender for a solid airline manager, which we did on time. Now, if along the line, along the way, the president found more reason to have the acting CEO confirmed, I don't know whether in my capacity as a minister I would challenge that. But as I said, I request that maybe you interact with the president. He may give you more about this.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, but those are documents which are, again, as I said, I may not have to give them today. As I said, if you want, since you have agreed, we can share them in a private meeting.
Okay, because why we want to know exactly what the communication was is because it helps us for two reasons. There has been occasions where ministers say, have a presidential directive when it does not exist. We had Honorable Betty Kamya here during investigations of Uganda Land Commission. She said she acted on a presidential directive. We gave her time to produce it. She never did. We asked the Minister of Finance, Honorable Matia Kasaija, who was seated where you are seated, if he saw the directive. And he said, I'm sorry, Honorable Chair, I trusted my colleague minister, but I never saw the directive. Maybe with hindsight, I should have first requested for it. So sometimes people say, I have a directive when it does not exist. Yeah? And number two, sometimes there might be a directive which will communicate certain things. The directive could say, follow the law to make sure A, B, C, D happens. And then that follow the law has got to be unpacked if that law is eventually followed or whatever. So that's why it's important that it becomes clear what the content was. Let me read to you a document and then you can let me know because we get so many communications, we see so many things in the media. It's our duty to ask and then there's clarification. Like we asked the first one where we saw you say make remarks in the media and you made a clarification. So I see a letter here written to General Katumba Wamala, Ministry of Works and Transport. Appointment of Ms. Jennifer Bamturaki as the substantive CEO, Uganda Airlines. We have previously discussed the issue of the substantive management of the Uganda Airlines. According to my intelligence, Jennifer Bamturaki has performed well in quite a hostile environment. I myself was flown by the brand new CJR 900 to Nairobi and back the other day by the very able young pilots. I direct that you give Jennifer Bamturaki a substantive appointment for 3 years. Thereafter, we can use the other processes of recruiting companies. Signed, Yoweri K. Museveni. Copy to HE, the Vice President, and to the Right Honorable Prime Minister. Is this letter familiar? Is this what I've read? What was your interpretation of this?
I don't think we are done whether I should read. I am in good position to interpret the president's mind.
He wrote to you.
Yes,
I'm not talking about interpreting the mind.
Yes.
I'm talking about interpreting the letter.
Yeah, the letter is a directive. Well, maybe again, as I said, I come from a different background. For me, if the president, who is the commander-in-chief and who is now the executive, if he gives a directive, this time it's even in writing, then I have to implement the directive.
Did you not think, as a senior minister, somebody that has been in charge of the ministry for a bit of time, to say, okay, so here is a directive, how can we make sure in implementing the directive, the law is properly enveloped? Because an advert is out there, and the board told us 40 people applied. 2 days to the deadline of submitting, those that were interested. Then somebody substantively appointed. We asked her, she said, me, I didn't apply. On the day I was going to apply, that's the day I was substantively appointed. Those were her words. So it leaves us in a bit of confusion because the president, for example, appoints ministers like yourself. Those ministers come to parliament and go through a vetting process. Yeah?
Yes.
And some meet the threshold, like yourself. There are others that don't meet the threshold. This parliament, not even the 11th parliament, parliament generally has at some point said no to some appointees to say, you know what, this one does not meet the mark. And so the appointment is put aside. Did you not think that maybe this should have been subjected to the process to say, okay, so if here is somebody that's being seen as very competent, what's wrong with subjecting them to an interview with all the other 40? If she is really good, as it is said, she will beat them all, she will win, and then she gets to be appointed.
Honorable Chair, you have read the letter very well. The contents are very clear. The President said in his own handwriting, in his own writing, which means he had taken extra. I know that before he appoints anybody, he has enough dossier on that person. So I would not, and it would be disrespectful of me to challenge the President's directive. It would be disrespectful. And I would not want to be doing that because, again, as I said, from the institution I came from, we respect order, we respect directives. So I had no reason to disrespect the President's directive. What I did is to write to the board, and I told them, follow the process of appointing the recommended person to the position.
Okay, so you are saying you wrote to the board and told them, follow the process of appointing the recommended person. That's what you have just said. Do you have a copy of that letter which you wrote to them?
Well, again, the invitation was saying you are going to look at Auditor General's report. He didn't, I wish it had been saying all issues concerning Uganda Airlines, but it was very specific. Like, I think you have a copy, said Auditor General's report.
Okay, so let's take verbatim what you have said. You wrote to the board and said, follow the process. Do you think the board followed the process as you guided them, assuming that's actually what you said in your letter, that follow the process of appointing this recommended person? Did the board follow the process?
Now, that would be micromanagement. The board is a board. It has the responsible people. They know what they're supposed to do. So I cannot again go down to see, to supervise them to do what I would have directed them to do. It would be micromanagement.
No, I actually think, Honorable Minister, when you issue an instruction, you follow up to make sure it is implemented. You ask for a report. So micromanaging is when you go and do it for them. So here we are talking about you writing to them, as you have said, and you indicated to them, follow the process to appoint this recommended person. I think you are duty bound as the person superintending over the entity to ask for a report, to follow up and be sure, have they done what you asked them to do? Have they followed the process?
I appreciate that concern, but I didn't at that time think I should follow a letter, a directive I've given to see how it has been implemented. Because, as I said, this is an entity which is self-accounting, self-governing, and the people we put in charge, they are really people whom we know they have the capacity. So I could not go down to see whether my instructions were followed to the letter.
Okay, you probably were not able to at that time. What it means, I should tell you that generally, people don't do what is expected. They do what is inspected. As a leader, I'm sure you know that. So you are the minister superintending over the entity. You represent 50% shareholding. So you're not just minister now, you're also shareholder. I would think that after giving and issuing an instruction such as that, follow the process, a couple of months down the road, it might not be at that very time. You say, I trust you people, I've given instructions, I know you will do the right thing. Have you since established, now that some months have passed, have you since established whether the board followed the process as you instructed them?
Yes, from the appointment letters which they gave, they must have followed the process.
They must have followed the process. That's
They
different
did.
from whether you're sure.
They did follow the process.
Okay, now the board was here, Honorable Minister, and the board told us when they got your letter, they immediately discontinued the recruiting process. They told PricewaterhouseCoopers, even though we have paid you 98.1 million, stop that process. We have hired, just a second.
They have not been paid.
Well, I'm telling you what they told us. You know, so they cut short that process and said, look, we have a letter from the minister, and so we are hiring somebody substantively. So 40 people who had applied were not even interviewed. That number was given to us by the board. So they were not even interviewed. Everything else was ignored. And then somebody was hired. Those are the words of the board. So how do you say they must have followed the process, especially if you didn't cross-check to be sure they did?
No, Honorable Chair. The fact that people had applied, does it mean you, once you apply, you definitely go for it?
No, at least you're given an opportunity to
Yes.
do interviews, and then you're proved worthy or not.
Of course, even the firm which we hired was not only going to interview, was not only for the CEO. We have other positions which they were supposed to conduct interviews for.
Now, Honourable Minister, as Honourable Minister becomes in, I am now getting, I don't know whether to believe you or the board, because the board said they hired PricewaterhouseCoopers with instructions to recruit a CEO. After this was cut short, the board told us that they told PricewaterhouseCoopers, we shall engage later for recruiting other positions. Yes. What you're saying is that at that point they were recruiting both CEO and other managers. That wasn't it. At that point, they were recruiting CEO. Those are the instructions which the board gave PricewaterhouseCoopers. So when that process was cut short, they said, we shall let you know about an engagement for recruiting other officers.
So in the PricewaterhouseCoopers, as you were saying that they were paid, they were not paid for that job because they didn't conduct that job.
But the board, that's why it was going to be important for them to be here, because they said why money was extended to PricewaterhouseCoopers, they spent money, they advertised in the papers. You know, I don't think that was done for free.
The accounting officers here.
Chair, we had an engagement with Pricewaterhouse and the contract is signed. When the process was terminated, we engaged them and we are in touch with them because they had proposed to give us what they had spent so that we make it good. But we say no, let's have further engagement after we engage you to do some other work. And we that process.
Okay.
Honorable Chair, I just have a few issues for clarification. Before maybe I refer to one other document as we go along. Honorable Minister, you just expressed perspective that you're working under a directive from His Excellency emanating from his powers under the Constitution, which we are not denying. But you told us this morning that this is not a parastatal. It's actually a limited liability company. If it was an ordinary parastatal, maybe the assumption is that it's here under the control, almost total control of government. But you have shareholders, and you expect even other investors to come in and buy shares. So we are selling shares to the public as a limited liability company, meaning that the operations and management, total governance, is within the Companies Act and the Articles of Association. So kindly please just mention one article within the Articles of Association of Uganda Airlines, giving powers to the President or yourself as an individual shareholder, because you're not saying shareholders meeting with the Minister of Finance, but you say, I directed. So it is you and His Excellency the President that directed appointment, which is irregular and illegal, because this is a company limited by shares, and you're going to offer shares to the public, giving the confidence that they have powers to manage their company as shareholders. I would have expected you to come up with a resolution of the shareholders, you and the Minister of Finance, in respect of that matter. It is not there. Two, that is weird and very dangerous. The minister suspending a board of a limited liability company just give us an article giving you those powers in light of Section 21 of the Companies Act and the articles of memorandum and articles of association. If it is not available, it exactly shows the impunity and arbitrariness, how you are running this company. Lastly, but not least, I have a document here. It's 67 pages, but since I didn't give it to the clerk, you may have to submit it to a clerk and you have good reading. It's a letter addressed to you, dated May 21st, 2021. Page 3 talks about this particular issue, where the board is not happy with what is going on. And you're just telling last year that the board actually went through the process. Mr.
20 what?
May 21st, 2021. It's a letter addressed to you and...
Who wrote the letter?
The chairman of the board, Ahabu.
But I have
It means at that time.
at that
At
time.
that time, talking about the issue of the person you are really appointing as a CEO and giving all... Can I finish? Yes. So, let's give it to the chair and you for further reading. But it's still really giving a different perspective when you say the board approved, when the letter is actually contesting the very issue you're talking about. I'm really worried, with all due respect.
Maybe then.
Yeah.
A report to the minister.
Honorable Chair, I think we are mixing two things. Let's give you some more background. Uganda Airlines, as we said, came into being at that time in 2018. A board was appointed, headed by Perezi Ahabu. It was approved by Cabinet. By the 21st of April 2021, that board and the management was suspended on the directive of the president because he had gathered information about the mismanagement, and there were about 18 areas of mismanagement which are under investigation even as I speak now. Some of them are still with IGG as investigation. So that board ceased to exist. So Uganda Airlines for some time performed with a temporary, I call it kind of an interim board. An interim, because you'll answer. I allowed you to finish. Let me also finish. So it was the interim board was put in place to ensure that the processes and the institution can run. A new board has been appointed, headed by Mrs. Seruka. That's a new board. So the reference you are making of Ahabu writing to me about Bamturaki in 2021 was overtaken by events of the directive of the president.
I think maybe what is pointing out is that at the time, the board chairperson wrote to you raising a couple of issues. Now, you can say either you didn't think the issues raised, held any merit, or you disregarded them or whatever, but you cannot say that they have been overtaken by events. Part of this inquiry is into the Auditor General's report, ending June 30th of 2021. We are in 2022. So somebody cannot say, but that report has been overtaken by time and events. You get what I mean? So maybe a response could be, yes, I got the letter, but I didn't think there was any merit, or I just chose not to act on it, or whatever the case might be. But we cannot say it's been overtaken by events.
No, what I was saying, according to my fellow shadow minister, from the presentation It was like saying what was done by Habwe is the same thing which has been done. It was like, for him, it was the same board, which I'm clarifying that it's not.
Mr. Chairman, I have a letter, 30th July 2021. I hope you received that copy. Or you are aware. Yes.
What are the contents?
Yeah,
We
the
don't know.
letter is actually referring consideration of removal and appointment of the board to the Articles of Association. So my point I'm raising, in whatever you're doing as either shareholders or as board members, you must follow the law and the Articles of Association. In fact, it is actually contesting your suspension of the board because you did not follow the law. Yes, yes.
Chair, we registered a resolution
Maybe you
for
can-
those actions, and the resolution is available.
Yes, Mr. Pierce, you can carry on.
Resolution to form the board, the shareholders and the board, and whatever we are doing was being guided by the provisions under the company.
You registered?
The resolution of shareholders and it also resolution of the board to handle those matters.
Do you have copies of those?
Again, sir, as I said,
No problem.
the invitation was not bring everything to do with Uganda Airlines.
Let's take note of
I
the
wish we
documents.
had, we would bring the
Let's
text
take
of
note
what-
of the documents, and the clerk is noting, so that we avail all those documents tomorrow. They will help for us to get good clarification. So, Honorable Simabi, what you are raising is
Attorney General rightly advised that because the Honourable Minister talked about suspending the board, there was no board. That whatever was done was irregular. The board was entitled to be heard. In other words, your suspension was out of bias, the law. So my worry is that the Honourable Minister, who is a shareholder, and the one inviting the public to invest in this company, is not following the law. He's following directives and personal wishes and whims. You see, he has not quoted any article because this is a limited liability company. It's not a parastatal controlled by the state. You are there as shareholders in a public company which is supposed to invite us to invest, but you are suspending the board without a resolution of shareholders. When the powers lie in the shareholders meeting, you also appointing a CEO who is supposed to be appointed by an organ of the company called the board of directors against their advice. So,
maybe to put the question plainly, 95(3) of the Companies Act of 2012. When directors are to be removed, they must be given a fair hearing. They must be heard. Did this happen?
Honorable Chair, this happened.
But the Auditor General, the Attorney General,
No,
Seems to
if
say
you-
otherwise.
we have proof that everybody appeared before the shareholders and was heard. The records are there.
The due process was followed. First, we wrote to them to put them the issues which were of concern, and we asked them to respond in writing, which they did. Later on, they were invited for a hearing, and that was done, and it is on record.
yes, when you say we asked them, did you attend that meeting? That one, where they were given that audience?
I did.
As who? Because you are not a shareholder.
No,
Yeah.
I am like the secretariat of the secretary.
who else was in that meeting?
Minister of Finance and myself.
Yes. With the secretary. Yes. And the secretary.
Okay, so we will need to get, and you said you have the minutes.
We have the minutes. We have the documents.
I don't know whether it's the PS or somebody is noting these documents that we require tomorrow. Your team is doing so that we see them and be sure it is tallying, because when we read what the Attorney General is saying and it doesn't seem to tally with what you're saying, we get a bit confused. But if you're saying the documents are there, we shall want to see them and ascertain. Yes, Honorable Gaffa.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of the board that was suspended, the litigation in the future, This board was appointed for a specific period of time. This board was suspended, according to the minister. It was not dissolved. It was suspended, and then an interim board was put in place. He has not indicated whether this board that was suspended was finally dissolved, but now we have a new board in place. Legally, what it means is that the other board that was suspended is still on suspension until the investigations on the issues that led to their suspension are concluded, and then the board is either dissolved or reinstated. I just need to get that clarification, because in the future it can cause us problems.
Member of the members, the audience, that board was dissolved. So the board, the old board, does not exist.
And was that resolution registered?
The board. I'll find out.
Oh, so the others you're very sure. This one you're not sure. You're saying you'll find
You
out.
cannot recall everything. This paper is on file.
Because this is, remember, filing and registering suspension. Surely you can't forget if you eventually dissolved formally. You can't forget that.
We shall get that.
Mr. Chairman, again, for
Chairman,
boards are not dissolved. The shareholders, you have the powers, board and appoint. My worry is not about even whatever they did. Formally, as an organ of shareholders, you did not sit to dismiss this board. However, what the Honourable Minister said is the President was not happy with the operations of the board and directed that should be suspended. So that directive was out of bias. One. Two, when you appointed the new board as shareholders, that is okay. This board, the previous board ceased. I have no problem completely, because now at that moment you appointed a new board. We want to see a resolution of the meeting of the shareholders appointing a new board, because this is a limited liability company inviting shareholders outside the ministry. The issues of the companies, unless it's a parastatal, and you said it's not.
Thanks very much, Chair. Mine is just clarification to avoid future litigation. As my colleague was saying, if I got the PS properly about price coopers, you are not specific. First of all, they did not do any work. They had not done any work. This is a big organization that you don't take for granted. There is a statement you made that we told them, since we can get you other jobs. What does it mean? That they are demanding you something unless you fulfill in the future that you give them other jobs. Should you fail to give them, then they can show you. Can you clarify that so that I'm comfortable that price coopers will not come in the future and say, I'm demanding 100 millions for the service done, and it raises another audit query?
Chair, it's not true that they don't exercise, and they incurred some expenses, which they have put to us.
Okay. You told us earlier that you wrote to the board and you told them follow the process of implementing this recommendation to substantively appoint Jennifer Bamturaki. I have a letter here which you can clarify if it is a true reflection. This is a letter from the office of the Ministry of Works and Transport, written to the Chairperson Board of Directors, Uganda National Airlines Company Limited. Reference is made, appointment of Ms. Jennifer Bamturaki as a substantive CEO, Uganda Airlines. Reference is made to the letter dated 24th April 2022 from HE, the President of the Republic of Uganda, in respect of the subject matter above, a copy attached to his reference. The purpose of this letter is to bring the directive to your attention for implementation. Signed, the Honorable Edward Katumba Wamala, Minister of Works and Transport. Is this similar to what you said? Because the words you told us is that you wrote to the board and told them, follow the process of implementing this recommendation. Is that reflected in this letter? By the way, is this
Yes.
was this letter written by you?
Implementation means,
Maybe just first confirm. Well, is this the letter you wrote?
yes.
Okay.
Implementation means you take action according to the law. Do I have to define?
But your earlier remarks were that you defined. The letter which you are owning up does not define that follow process, the due process.
Honorable Chair, as a board, they have guidelines on how to make appointments. So if I say implement, it means you follow those guidelines to implement the directive.
Okay, maybe I hope paint a picture for us, Honorable Minister.
So maybe you're saying the English is too shallow.
No, you see, in law, and I'm a lawyer, every word counts. So when you say that I wrote and I said follow the process, and in the letter which you have owned up, there is no word saying follow the process. The two are different. It's just like if HE said follow the process, as opposed to I'm directing do this immediately. The two are totally different. But let me flip the question, Honorable Minister. So now that you're saying you expected them to follow the guidelines, you are a shareholder, representing a shareholder, you are the minister superintending over. What is that process which should have been followed to appoint a substantive CEO? What process is that the board should have followed?
I think that question should be put to the board. They know.
And we put that to the board, Honorable Minister. We are now putting it to you, the minister, because you cannot say, Honorable Minister, surely. You're here as a minister, okay, also as a shareholder. We cannot ask a question and then you say, no, put it to the board. We engaged with the board. What I'm asking you as the supervisor, as the person who you're saying you expected the board to follow the guidelines. Which guidelines? You must know them. You cannot say me, I don't know them, or the board knows them. You're the supervisor, surely.
Honorable Chair, I told you that I'm not, I don't love micromanagement. That board has very, very senior people in management. So if I gave that instruction, they know how to proceed to make the appointment.
So, Honorable Minister, I'm actually not disputing that they know what to do. Thing is, when you are a supervisor and you issue instructions and you're saying you expect the instructions to be followed according to the law, it would, except if you're saying you do not know the procedures, then we shall encourage you, please, as minister who is supervising this entity, please go and read the guidelines and know them. I think you must know them. It's just like the Speaker of Parliament must know the rules of procedure. When the Speaker gives us as a committee instructions, inquire into this entity under this rule or whatever the case might be, the Speaker is expected to know that rule, you know, or at least to be able to reference it and say, this is the rule under which you must operate. So the Speaker can't say, for me, I don't know the rule, the committee knows the rules, they're the ones doing the work. But the Speaker is a supervisor. So as the supervisor, as a shareholder, because for you now it's two things. You're the supervisor, but you're even more than just a supervisor. You are a shareholder. So when you give instructions and say, follow the process, the due process, to appoint a substantive CEO, you cannot say you don't know what that process is, because then how do you know that they have followed due process or they haven't?
Honorable Chair, if the board was not clear of what was expected of them, they would have come back to me. If the instructions were not clear, because this is a body. I mean, this body is not a small body. It's a body with very experienced people. We took a lot of time even to find these people. So if they were not clear with the instructions, I would have expected a response to say, we have received your letter, but we don't know what to do.
So, Honourable Minister, let's imagine the board understood it the way they did, and they went ahead to act. You as supervisor, how do you tell that they actually did the right thing? Because you see, as a supervisor, when you give instructions to people, some will understand them and do it the right way. Some might misconstrue and do the wrong thing. It is your duty as a supervisor to tell them you have done the right thing, or you have probably not done the right thing, you've not followed the law or the procedure, do it this way. So how do you know? Let's forget about whether or not the board understood you. Let's imagine they understood you and they knew what to do.
Yeah.
For you as supervisor, how do you know that they followed your instructions of following due process, or that they did?
Because they appointed the CEO, they appointed her.
So now that
they
are
the terms of reference, our job.
Okay, so they did that.
But Chair,
Are you able to, just a second, are you able, Honourable Minister, to confirm to us that now that they appointed the CEO, they followed what you told them, that followed due process? Do you know if they followed due process, you as supervisor and as shareholder? Because you can't say there is a substantive CEO, so they must have followed the process. Maybe they followed it, maybe they did not. So do you as a supervisor, as shareholder, know if the board followed due process, which you asked them to follow in appointing the substantive CEO?
I think we are going around in circles.
No, suppose you're not coming
Honourable
through,
Chair.
you're not forthcoming on the answer, Honourable.
I think we are going around in circles because this board, if anything, like earlier you had said, the board is a body which is entrusted with running the affairs of this entity, right? If the board was not sure of what was expected of it, then they would not have gone ahead to appoint Jennifer as the CEO. They would have come back to me. Given that they didn't, then they knew exactly what was expected of them.
Okay, so you as supervisor, because as supervisor, you're expected to superintend and be sure things are done right. How do you know that they did the right thing or they didn't do the right thing?
They did what I told them because the CEO has been appointed.
Let me ask this question in a different way, Honourable Minister. Follow the due process of implementing the recommendation. Follow the due process. What did you mean by due process? Because I want to believe you knew what you were talking about by the time you told them, follow the process. What is that process? Please don't tell me, ask the board.
No. Even in the human resource manual of the airline, there are provisions of how appointments are made. Right? So the board, it was expected to do that, and that's what they did. And I have no reason to doubt that they followed the due process and that the person who was recommended for appointment was appointed. And they even went further to ensure that this person is confirmed by the regulator, CAA. So the process was followed.
I'll tell you what due process sounds like to me. So an advert has been put out there, people are applying, they're still in the process of applying. For me, due process would be subject this person to interviews with the rest of everybody. But that did not happen. The person was immediately appointed. The other process of recruiting was terminated. So for me, my understanding of due process, which you say you were communicating to them, would be, now that you're in the process of recruiting, you're going to subject people to interviews. This recommendation has also come. Subject it also to interviews. And then we establish if she is the best among them all.
Honorable Chair, I told you from the beginning, the President has powers he exercised his powers. Me, a minister, how would I challenge his powers? Under what law, under what provision would I challenge the powers of a president? That's where I want to be guided. Under what provision in the Constitution
Let me guide
that
you.
the minister can challenge the powers of the president when he has exercised his power as a president?
Let me guide
Okay,
you.
I asked here.
as Honorable is going to guide you,
Yes.
so are you now telling us that they did follow due process, they implemented a presidential directive? Is that what you're telling us?
I asked you here, Chair, that if the president appoints a governor, appoints a chief justice, he appoints a CDF, he appoints an IGP, how would I challenge him on appointing the CEO?
Let me be sure I get you right as we get guidance on that issue. Yeah? So first you were saying, you told the board to follow due process, and you have said they followed due process because they appointed a substantive CEO. Now you are saying there was a directive from the president. How were you going to challenge it? So which is which, Honorable Minister? Did they follow due process or did they follow a presidential
Honorable
directive?
Chair, you read that letter
Mm.
with an attachment, right? So what was the use of the attachment? To clarify that this is the position now.
Okay, so at least for me that gives me clarity.
No quick guidance.
When you, because you cannot say they followed due process and you're not telling us what that due process is. You're saying the board knows, but then on the other hand you're saying there was a presidential directive, I was not going to challenge it. So I want to take it that you followed the directive and you asked the board to follow the directive, forget about due process.
Yes, and I would want, Honorable Chair, if you want to challenge that, invite the president and put him to it.
Okay, so
No clarification for the future. The record is clear on that matter. However, for the future operations of this institution, Honorable Minister, as a shareholder, kindly please refer management, governance issues to established laws, not the Constitution, because the Constitution gives the President overwhelming powers. No one is doubting that. But even appointing the CDF, he's appointing the CDF under specific law. If even the governor is under specific law. So the operating law here is the Companies Act and the Memorandum and Articles of Association. Actually giving you overwhelming powers as a shareholder, even to dismiss or to dissolve the board with or without any good cause. Otherwise, when you subject public institutions which are quasi-private, where people are going to invest, and they are subjected to directives of a president, no one will invest in that company. Because I want to invest in a company as a shareholder where I have a stake and I have powers in management and governance. So if you appoint a board to do the work as an organ, and for almost 6 months there's no organ called the board, then there's no company operating. So please don't, I know you have the military background, armory in your armory, but this is really, it's a different matter. It has laws operating. So if you have an armory from wherever, you subject to the organ, the shareholders meeting where you shareholder.
I appreciate.
And then you pass a resolution. It will go down and we have smooth running, but this thing
I highly appreciate it.
yes.
My shadow minister.
for you, Honorable Minister, to say, well, for me, I was directed by the President, go and ask the President if you want. I find that problematic because the supervisor of this entity is yourself. Who represents the shareholder, not the President, it is yourself. Okay, so you cannot say there was a bigger power that influenced me, so go and ask that power. But my engagement is with the supervising minister, my engagement is with the shareholder, who I expect to take decisions. Now, the shareholder can get advice from everybody, whoever, you know, from fellow leaders, from superior powers, from relatives, from whoever, I don't care. But ultimately, the decision that you take, you have got to own it. Surely, Honorable Minister, you cannot say, you go and ask the President. Well, you must own that decision that you do. So you cannot say, because I was following a directive, you go and ask whoever gave me the directive. Because as far as the law that I'm looking at is concerned, that directive, for me, is out of place. Who has the powers? It is the supervising minister. Who has the powers? It is the shareholder. You are both of those things. So surely, Honourable Minister, you cannot say, go and ask the President. You must own your decisions.
Honorable Chair, who appoints the minister? It's the President.
They appoint you to do what? Because you see, when you take decisions, Honourable Minister, some are right decisions, some are wrong decisions. When you make a wrong decision, do we go to the appointing authority and say you're the one who has made this wrong decision? Yes, of course, the appointing authority maybe should have appointed better, but in that particular regard, we hold you responsible because you're the one in charge. You don't say, okay, now that I have, just as an example, that a minister steals taxpayers' money. So that minister cannot say, you go and arrest the appointing authority. No, we arrest that minister who has stolen that money. Except if there is evidence that that minister was sent by the appointing authority to go and steal that money. Then we go for both of them, the sender and the actor. But if, away from that, the person who is in that position is the one responsible. So you cannot send us that now, go and ask the President when we have the shareholder here. We have the minister in charge. That's my challenge. Honorable Gaffa?
Respectful of you as a minister, if you got a directive from the President and you have technical officers in your ministry, and in trying to implement that directive, you find it lacking legally, is it disrespectful of you to get back to the President and say, Your Excellency, sir, the directive you gave me, I am finding challenges implementing it because of reasons A, B, C, D, and this is the guidance I have got technically or legally. How do you look at it? Is that disrespectful?
In this case, what would impede me from implementing a directive?
Yes, when you get a directive like we are discussing here, and we find this directive in the future, it really impedes with the law of this entity. This is what I'm asking. Because we put on you some of these things, the President directed this, they are telling you under the company law and the articles, this does not exist. You know, is it disrespectful of you to get back to the President and say, Your Excellency, this has a weakness here legally, probably we could do it this way?
If the President had not put in writing, confirming that had already, I think you read the letter which the President wrote, and it was loaded. It had all the reasons why he made the decision.
I think what we are saying, Honourable Minister, and we understand the difficulty sometimes as ministers you find yourselves in. But what we are saying is that it's important to shield yourself too. Because you notice why you're not even responding to the question of what the procedure is, because you know that the procedure was terminated. You know? What we are saying is that it's important that when there is a process which you know about, which you are telling the board follow due process, that you advise your appointing authority that, you know what, for us to be properly shielded, let this person be subjected to due process. Because if tomorrow that person goofs up, if it turns out that they're actually way below the required standard, then the appointing authority will be blamed, you will be blamed, as opposed to this person went through procedure. Maybe the procedure did not sit properly enough. And so we are saying it's important that when there's due process, you say, you know what, it is not out of disrespect, but sir, could we just subject this person? There are interviews that are going to go on, you know, let's subject this person to the interviews. If they are the best, they will come out the winner. It shields you as well, Honourable Minister, because now you're getting a beating, you have become a punching bag, because you took the decision anyway, you had the power to take the decision, and yet due process was terminated. I don't know if you hear us, Honourable Minister.
I get the point.
Okay, so let's move to something else. This particular issue, because the Minister gets it, so that we don't go in circles, you know. I want, maybe you'll submit on this one. I don't know if Honorable Minister, as shareholder, as the supervising minister, of course we don't want to micromanage. But for this entity to be healthy, you have got to keep your hands off but your eyes on. Some of the top officials running Uganda Airlines do not have the minimum qualifications according to the HR manual. We asked them for their HR manual, which they gave us. And then we asked them for their CVs, which they gave us. We compared and contrasted, and there were problems. The commercial director, for example, of Uganda Airlines, according to the HR manual, must possess a degree and several other qualifications. The current commercial director, Honorable Minister, her highest qualification, according to the CV which she gave us, is Senior 6. I don't know if you know about this and whether it concerns you. The current CEO that we have been talking about, Jennifer Bamturaki, according to the HR manual, which she gave us, must have a degree and then postgraduate, master's or whatever the case might be. According to the CV which she gave us, the highest qualification which she has, according to her CV, is a bachelor's degree. So that means she does not meet the required minimum qualification. I don't know if you know about these issues and whether you have interested yourself in them, because while there are those who will say, but minimum qualification doesn't matter, it's experience and all of that. So why is it in the HR manual? If it is irrelevant, the HR manual is made by Uganda Airlines and the board. They can change it. To be a member of parliament, one must have Senior 6. Yeah? That's the law. Okay? So my 2 degrees and the third one which I am doing do not matter. When I went to be nominated, I only took Senior 6 because that's what they wanted. I have 2 degrees, I'm doing a third. But I left those ones at home. They were not needed. Yeah? But then there are people who will say, for me, I speak good English. I can debate even though I don't have a Senior 6 certificate. They will not get nominated because what is the law? They might speak better English than Joel Ssenyonyi, who has 2 degrees, debate better, but if they don't have Senior 6 as a minimum, they don't qualify. So I don't know if, Honourable Minister, you have interested yourself in these issues.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and I have. Because even in the Auditor's General Report, it's among the issues. Having got that information, on the 17th of May this year, I wrote to the Minister of Public Service and the Executive Director, National Planning Authority, requesting for them to give me a technical team to conduct a manpower audit and evaluation of the current capacity of the employees of Uganda Airlines. And a team of we have put in place a team of 2 people from Ministry of Public Service. From Public Service, 2 from National Planning Authority, and 2 from Ministry of Works. And we gave them the terms of reference. Among them, is to investigate whether these people, all the people now employed in Uganda Airlines, whether they meet the requirements as per the Human Resource Manual. So that work is still ongoing. The draft terms of reference are here for the manpower audit, to include, among others, to study the current Uganda National Airlines Company Limited establishment structure in line with the vision and mission. Assess the adequacy of the established structure in relation to requirements of the regulator, that is CAA, and the day-to-day operations of the airline. Assess the efficiency and effectiveness of the available human resource in the airline. Assess the available human resource in terms of numbers and qualifications against the established structure, and highlight the field and unfilled positions. Identify the challenges being faced by the airline in the attraction and retention of competent staff. Study the existing job description and titles and make recommendations for the most suitable job description and titles. Study the different salaries targeted to respective jobs and make appropriate recommendations. Consult the shareholders and board of directors to obtain their views on the appropriate manpower requirements for the airline. Propose recommendations to improve the management of the airline. Prepare and submit a report to the minister. That work is still work in progress.
Okay. What were the timelines that you set for them?
They were 1 month, but when they went for 1 month, they came back to say it was a short period. We gave them another month. Yes.
So when does that extra time elapse?
That should be mid-September.
September. Okay. Is it possible to have a copy of that?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Chair.
Okay. As Honorable Sivambi comes in, I just want to establish. So let's assume they realize that some of the staff don't qualify because, as we have told you, the HR manual says one thing, the CVs say another thing. You told us the CEO was appointed because there was a presidential directive. If they come back and say, look, the HR manual says the CEO must have a bachelor's degree, postgraduate, master's and above, but the CEO only has a bachelor's degree, so she does not qualify. Will you take action to have that CEO removed and another put in place? Or the presidential directive bars you?
We will cross that bridge when we get to it.
Well, the bridge is here now in form of a question.
No, because the report is not yet here.
No,
because that's an assumption.
You don't want even...
Honorable Minister, Honorable Minister,
let's wait for the report.
it is actually not an assumption. We are a committee of parliament. You have put in place a select committee, giving them terms of reference. Let them do their job.
Exactly.
Now, as a committee of parliament, we are telling you what we have discovered so far. That based on the HR manual given to us by the team from Uganda Airlines, and based on the CVs which they have given us themselves, it shows clearly that the two do not match. And so we are asking if the minister is going to take action. So the minister cannot say, we shall cross that bridge when we get there.
Honorable Chair, the report is not yet here. September is just next door.
Yeah, but Honorable Chair,
yes.
I have something quick in that May 21st, 2021. From page 11 up to page 16. But he got the document and confirmed. So that document highlights issues of influence peddling in the recruitment and people who are not qualified being appointed in positions. And the letter is dated 21st May 2021. Whatever you are suggesting here is emanating from an Auditor General's report. But the names, which names I don't want to read here for purposes of what you talked about this morning, because some of them are holding sensitive offices. Not even the CEO's office is not so sensitive as some of the positions highlighted here. I'm actually surprised that you rely on an Auditor General's report to appoint a committee or a commission to investigate and give advice. When the board, in its report, actually about 4 or 5 pages, is talking about influence peddling of some of your, even a junior minister, appointing individuals or suggesting names. I don't know what you have to say about that, because it's not something that you got to know yesterday from the Auditor General's report. It was given to you by the board in a report with appendix of individuals who are not qualified and those who are appointed under directive of your junior minister, and you did not take...
But by that time, Perez was not a member of the board.
No, but you see, I'm not talking...
He was a former member, but that was his views, and that can only be confirmed by this technical team.
By 21st May, he was not a board member?
No, he wasn't.
But did you receive this document?
Who wrote the letter?
Okay, he signed as a chairman of the board. Because maybe because he was irregularly suspended. Yeah, but I think the issue has nothing to do with him being a member or not, but bringing to your attention information of people improperly recruited.
That's why we said, let this committee do its work. It will establish whether those people are still there. Are they qualified to be in the positions? They are not qualified. It has people from public service, National Planning Authority, and the ministry. And I am sure they'll do a good job.
Honorable Naomi, then I'll come to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Jennifer. Honorable Minister, we are, as a committee, have not been against Jennifer as a person, because in fact we saw her, many of us, for the first time in these meetings. And personally, as a woman, I would have been very, very happy to see a woman at that level and managing our aircrafts. But, Honorable Minister, we had very, very serious problems with Madam Jennifer. First of all, we asked her for her certificates, for her O-level certificates. She didn't have a copy. She said she lost it. We asked her for her A-level, same story. Then we asked for her graduate certificate because we were worried that a social worker should run an airline, but all the same, we wanted to see her certificate, which certificate she didn't have. We also wanted to at least get a transcript from her from Makerere. Madam Jennifer arrogantly, and she's very arrogant, Honorable Minister, she told us off that she doesn't know why Makerere has never given her the certificate and that she has been there 3 times. She has not acquired this certificate. And we wondered, a woman of her caliber and at her level and all the interviews and certificate and jobs she has held, why she has never bothered to go to Makerere to get her transcript. Honorable Ministers, if that was not enough, Madam Jennifer had a conflict of interest. She had an interest in one company and we queried her, we asked her, and she said she doesn't know anybody in that company. Honorable Minister, then we found out that she had actually connections in that company. And then we started doubting her. And even her names varied on various documents. So, and then she went outside and boasted that being a CEO of an airline is her gift, a gift from God, that she's gifted. Then we wondered, witchcraft is she practicing? How could she come here to tell the world that because she is gifted? Many of us are gifted in many things, but we don't take on the jobs and own them. So, Honorable Minister, just single out one person in the company of Uganda Airlines. That's where our Jennifer, or your Jennifer for that matter, became a problem for us. And up to now, we still don't understand her, and she defies this committee. She doesn't attend. And the Honorable Minister, we saw your concern. I saw your concern in the media where we as Ugandans should not bother so much. But a person like Jennifer heading an establishment of that magnitude, Honorable Minister, leaves a lot of questions in our heads. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Board. I understand right now we have a new board in place. And I wanted to find out what is the criteria for the appointment of the board. And then 2, what is the qualification for ones to become a board in Uganda Airlines? And then 3, what is the position of the PS in the board? If it could be clarified, I think that would be very useful. The PS. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Namanya Nabo, Minister, you said you have instituted a committee to find out the human resource and all other gymnastics. Now, Honorable Minister, you wanted to get it clear from you. The recommendations of the committee when they come up,
will you implement the recommendations or you will not? Just that.
Okay, you can respond to those.
Yes, Honorable Judge, I totally understand the committee's concern. I would request that the issues which the Honorable has raised, because I find it very difficult to discuss a person in her absence, because I may be misquoted and all that, so I find it difficult, and she will not be here to defend herself. But since you have interacted, you have got all these issues, may I request that this, and I know it will, it can form part of the report, and then the report, that report will guide, which I know will be put on in the plenary, in the floor of Parliament, and then we'll proceed from there. So I request that those issues form part of the report.
Maybe just on that, Honorable, of course, for us now, we're interacting with you as her leader, you know. I am sure you engage the people you superintend over, and maybe counsel them even sometimes as a leader, as a father, you know. I think those are some of the issues Honorable Chibaju is raising, you know. Engage so that people take their job serious, you know. For her to come here and say, I don't have those documents, you know, 28 years later, it's possible the documents even exist, I don't know, but you're not serious about, you know, getting them 28 years later and so on, and yet even that document is not adequate, you know, given the other qualifications, the HR manual. But even that very one, I don't have it, you know. I've always just been headhunted and that kind of thing. I think she is saying, engage these people, cancel them, you know, because those positions they occupy are serious positions. So if they behave unseriously, we tend to imagine, are they up to the task? Proceed.
I agree. To update you, Chair, and members, I did engage with Jennifer on the issue of documents. And I told her, you must submit those documents, whatever you have. And she gave me assurance. Yesterday morning, very early in the morning, I was in office by 7:30. And she gave me assurance that she was submitting those papers to the committee. So that's as far as I can say. But I did engage her about making sure that she submits the papers.
Minister was saying some of these can be part of your report. I don't agree with that. You are the father of the ministry. There are certain things you can solve and we don't put it in the report. It is good for the image. For instance, Chair, I liked the minister when we were interacting with CAA, and it was tough. And the way you came and agreed that this is bad, they should do like that, and we ended it that way. I don't say anything, as my sister was saying. We are not witch hunting an individual. The question is, why is that particular person causing so many people to get concerned? That is it. But if you cancel her, for instance, I've been reading on the social media, I don't believe so much in social media, where the Vice Chancellor of Makere is saying Jennifer must apologize for telling guys that she has been going to Makere and failing to get the transport. So such things, if they are clear, we shall not put it in the report.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That's the person, but again, I talked to the chair, and this is coming in line with what the honorable member asked about the members of the board. Among the things we looked at, among the qualifications we looked at on that board was in areas of human resource management, senior pilots, senior technicians, people with technical know-how. The chairperson of that board is a very senior lady, very, very senior, and she has been heading so many NGOs. I can tell you that I talked to her and I told her what you're telling and what Honorable Bakabulindi is saying. I said, get time, sit down with this young lady and talk to her, not maybe as a chairperson of the board, but as a mother, so that the issues which are being raised by Honorable Chivazu, hopefully, should be able to listen. Because me as a man, I may have a different approach, but I think if she makes the chairperson of the board, who's a very senior lady, and she sits her down, some of these issues will be addressed.
Mr. Chair, just for guidance, and there's a small problem which also has to be addressed for the board and management not to believe that there's a lot of influence peddling, to see how you can separate the different organs. You as shareholders and the lead entity, Ministry of Works. Because when I look at some of the documentation and operation, there's a feeling that you look at this as a department within your ministry. When it's a fully-fledged entity which is supposed to be operating separately, I can kindly give you guidance without pay. If I talk to because there's a big problem now.
Yes, you are my fellow.
Your PS and the state minister, they're not supposed to appear anywhere legally, but they can give you advice as a shareholder in-house. Then you take that to a shareholders meeting. Because now I see correspondence where the former state minister, Joel Ssenyonyi, is giving numerous instructions on recruitment, on procurement, on, you see, when actually technically is not supposed to talk. But if it is through you as a shareholder in the shareholders meeting, it will be perfect in order. So we want to ensure that whatever is supposed to be done must be done in accordance with the law. I think that is a big problem. Then lastly, but not least again, management technically is supposed to take over this because it's a technical organ. So also the involvement of the board must be really clearly defined at a level, not to be seen, not only pretending, but not supervising, but actually doing the actual day-to-day management of an institution, which is technical and has other issues. So there lies the problem. I think that's why we have issues of infighting, which is actually created because of those gaps.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I take note of the advice of my fellow minister and the lawyer. Please rest assured I'll be interacting with you in detail because the issue of company law and all this, you're very much in charge of that. Honorable Chair, I think, yes, I agree. There should be very clear separation of roles of the ministry with shareholders. I think one of the problems which I can share with you came into being because of this is a young entity. And actually what the Honorable Swamp is talking about is part of what caused part of the problem to the other board, the first board, that they had left board level and they were going into management roles. And so there was conflict between the board and management. Now, we think that as the institution now, as the entity grows, we should be able to separate roles clear and allow each one to exercise his authority and his responsibility in the various organs. So we are going to do that because on the 30th we have an extraordinary AGM to even address some of these issues for this entity, and we'll be able to make sure that we define and we separate those roles. It was part of that, crossing over into other people's responsibilities, and that's what caused some of the problems. But we'll cure that. Again, as given guidance, we'll be able to cure that. But I think that some of the things we had, there was for example, in some cases you would find maybe overbearing because of either lack of seriousness. I'll give you an example. For example, even in the auditor's report, we bought ground handling equipment. It has taken time or that ground handling equipment to be employed. So you find like in that case, as a shareholder, which I shouldn't be doing, maybe you call a CEO and tell him, why is this taking long? We have issues, for example, now we are supposed to go to London, and our flight is supposed to go to London. There are a lot of demands from London which we must qualify. So for us to be able to achieve that and to be accepted into the British airspace, we must qualify so many things. Now, because of the interest and because of the demand for these services, for example, in London, you find that as a minister, you keep it up to say, where are you? Have you answered this? Have you responded to this? Why it shouldn't have been, but because of maybe, again, ensuring that things are done in the interest of the airline. But not that we want to take over their roles and their responsibilities. But going back, sir, to your question about the people we appointed on the board, I think I've answered. We looked at human resource. We looked at the pilot. One of the members of the board is a retired Captain Kisolo, very, very, very senior pilot. We looked at the technical people. Most of them, we have about 2 engineers on that board. And then we looked at the human resource. And we also looked at, because these boards you have to balance region, but we also had to balance technical know-how. And we got, for example, one of the things which have been dodging this company is the issue of the ICT, because we need most of the systems must be electronically controlled. So we had to get somebody who is an a person with electrical technical know-how to be on that board to help us with that. So we have a variety of qualifications on the board.
Honourable Minister, perhaps in response to the staff structure is not existent, salary structure is not existent, it's hazy, and that causes problems. You find there are people earning too high, and then there are juniors earning too low. And they speak to us, they tell us, I've used Uganda Airlines last year, going somewhere, and the juniors, the cabin crew people and so on, these ones that, just are you feeding information at the airport and so on, they earn too little, and they are desperate. Now, we want to make a case for them, and we are making a case for them. Yeah, because these are the foot soldiers that do the real hard labor. Okay, we don't want them to get annoyed because they're earning too little money and then, I don't know, they do what? Because they're the ones in charge. The senior managers sit in the offices, they are not the ones running the flight operations and so on. It's important, because when they complain quietly to us, they can't complain to you people. They fear you might fire them or influence, so we must be able to take action on these issues. Of course, you have extensively dealt with the question of separation of powers. It's important, Honourable Minister, that people take decisions and stand by them, and then we hold them responsible. That if the board makes a mistake, we hold the board responsible, so that they don't throw now the baton to the minister. They say, the minister gave us instructions. We want to be able to hold the board responsible and say, you should have done A, you did B, we hold you responsible. We want to be able to hold the minister responsible. To say, Minister, you should have done X, you did Y. And the minister shouldn't say, but I had a directive. Well, you have powers to act. So it's important that these things are in place. We want this entity to function. We want it to thrive. Ugandans got excited when there was Uganda Airlines. Of course, amidst challenges, because they know with many projects, some of those, the saboteurs. Yeah. I have heard some powerful people in this country say that Joel Ssenyonyi and this committee, they are economic saboteurs. They are sabotaging Uganda Airlines. Joel Ssenyonyi is actually doing everything possible to see to it that Uganda Airlines functions. Those who are sabotaging it are the ones who are stealing money from Uganda Airlines, according to the Auditor General's report. Those who are not following procurement, those who are incompetent and not doing the right thing. Those are the economic saboteurs that Joel Ssenyonyi is saying, let's deal with these people. So it's important that the work of this committee is put into proper perspective. And nonetheless, anyhow, we shall keep doing our work regardless. Our colleagues, I want us to close this session. I don't know if there's time from any of the team. Yes, Honorable Sivana. Please, if you have something to put across, raise it.
No, you said you're closing this. It's like you are the
You have the...
Because we're anxious to hear from the. Now I wanted to request for documents from the PS so that we can move to the yeah, yes, and articles of association. Then when the management team appeared before us, I came up with 2 different human resource manuals. We should get now a clear manual. Then, if you can get a copy of your minutes for the year audited. Then we have issues with the former statement in matters to do with
so, Honorable, when you raise queries, you are being unpatriotic? Is that what you're saying?
No, because rising of what is good, but I will give it to the chair.
And the Honourable Minister, you remember there was a time when the workers of Kenya Airways went on strike. And you know what happened? The airline is very sensitive. Very sensitive. My prayer to you, motivate the workers.
Okay. Mr. Bagaya, I understand you were involved in the in the hiring. Who was? We understand the ministry was.
I did not know about that.
Okay, and these are issues you need to interest yourselves in.
I'm not the person who throws my weight around.
Come again?
I'm not a person who throws my weight around.
What does that mean?
That I don't influence things.
No, not you. Well, maybe you or whoever else. Because you see, when the right people are not hired to do the right thing, nothing gets to function. So this PR company was hired, literally by Jennifer, who has a hand in it, and these are documents that are available. Procurement guidelines. But are we doing the advertising for Uganda Airlines? I don't think so. If a plane, our Airbus, which is supposed to have 258 people, can carry 2, that's problematic. We need to be able to do the real work, the real advertising. But part of the advertising is fixing these issues. Because if, some of you are complaining about COSASA, it's just that Ugandans, some of them don't read. The Auditor General's report is a public document. It's available on their website. Even without COSASA, if they go and download, they'll read these things. How are we supposed to make it happen and make it thrive? We must be able to fix these issues. There's no advertising that gets to happen, and that's why there's all these losses, but the advertising is not happening because the company hired the wrong way. Maybe there were better ones, but procurement was not followed. But because somebody was a silent partner, let's give them the job. They're not doing the job. And then there's over-invoicing and all these different things. So I hope you hear us when we say we want Uganda Airlines to function. If for nothing else, because the taxpayer has injected a lot of money. How much? $1.6 trillion shillings so far. And that is as of last year. A lot more, is coming through. That's money that the taxpayer is concerned about. 1.6 trillion shillings is a huge investment. And on an annual basis, we are investing a lot more. Buying equipment and so on and all of these different things. Can we make these airlines function? Any other questions, colleagues? No further questions. I want to thank you, Minister, for coming. Fighting, we shall continue to fight when there is need to. Because ultimately, we want, if anything, we are fighting those who are sabotaging entities like Uganda Airlines. So do your homework as a minister and as a ministry, and as somebody supervising the board and the entity, because the buck stops with you, sir, as the leader. Leadership is cause, everything else is effect. And as John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. I hope you can make good of that, sir. Anything you want to say finally?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank that bad child to get into a better person. So I would appeal to the members that either here or individually, we are available. The offices are open. If there are issues you have seen, even when you are traveling out, for example, and you realize something is not going right, please don't hesitate. We are here to serve. So I want to thank you, sir, and as we conclude, I want just to say this. Yes, as we go through the Auditor General's report, it has been one of the hardest times for airline industry. And I think the world over, not only on African continent, you know some of the African continent airlines which have folded. In the States, President Trump had to bail out the airline industry with $58 billion. So the airline industry is really, it will be, yesterday we were with the Abraham Rahman, the man of the Afra, we can have this airline function. We appeal to members when you're traveling, please, if the route has Uganda Airlines, let it be your first call. Travel on Uganda Airlines. Don't buy tickets elsewhere. If you see something which is not going right, please, again, as I said, send it out. No, I mean, get it to us instead of posting it on the social media, because the social media has its own. I'm saying, by the time we go to fight whether it's right or wrong, you remember when the CRJ9s had just come in, and we had a rat endeavor to see that yes, we get out of the doldrums, which where we are pushed because of the situation of COVID, and also the challenges of the airline industry. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much. And I want to thank members. Thank you for the interaction. Honorable Sivambi, I'll be on your door. Thank you.
Ensonga eyo naffe twali nga ministry naye nga one of the shareholders twali twagitandikako dda era nituteekawo ka committee k'abantu 6 kuliko abantu 2 okuva mu National Planning Authority, 2 mu National Planning Authority era Ministry of Finance, kuliko abantu 2 okuva mu Public Service ne 2 okuva mu Ministry ya Works, nga twabawa obuvunaanyizibwa bagende bakole assessment oba balabe abantu abali mu airline buli omu ali mu kifo kyalimu alina obumanyirivu obukugu obw'okubeera mu kifo ekyo. Ekintu ekirala kitwabagamba batuneko ye structure engeri airline gyeri. Tulowooza ffe mu kulowooza tulowooza mulimu abantu bangi okusinga bwe bandibadde, naye bo bajja tubuulira nti wano wandibaddewo 5, wano wandibaddewo 2, wano wandibaddewo 1. Kati byemu ku bye bakola n'okulaba ebyemisaala. Nolaba abamu bafuna nnyingi, abamu bafuna ntono, levels ziba zitya, ebyo byonna bagenda bitunulamu. Bwe banaamala tusuubira bajja tuwa ripooti mu September wakati, then tulabe ekyokukola.
Ensonga endala ebadde ku directive yawe badde bakunya tewagoberera bulungi binakukola nga supervisor ate nga shareholder. Ensonga eno wagikwata
naye ensonga eyo tulina okumanya nti ensi eggwanga lirina alikulembera eyaweebwa mandate ey'abantu. Akati omuti obo aba yaweebwa mandate ey'abantu ate nga ne constitution emuwaaki emuwa mandate. Kati bw'aba yagambye nti ono abeere wano katumuwa omukisa akole ki akole bwanaalemwa tujja kuba nga tumugana tinedda omuntu oyo gwewagira ki tasobola naye kati tekiba na kya buntu bulamu nga pulezidenti agambye nti omuntu oyo muteekawo mulabye mulungi kubanga pulezidenti alina engeri nyingi gyasobola okwasesinga Katumba yaani alina departments nyingi alina ISO alina SO alina baani financial intelligence kati bwaba tannaba ku appointinga muntu ate afuna information eyo yonna kakati oluusi oyinza okusanga ng'omuntu tebamuwadde lwa diguli mmeka z'alina ayinza okuba nga alina ebintu ebirala byatunuulira akasente akalya mu bbi alina kwigamba ebintu ebirala nga ye pulezidenti waba alabye era kyembadde ngamba ababaka nti bannaye oba pulezidenti mumuwa obuyinza n'appointinga gavana owa Bank of Uganda n'alonda chief justice ow'ensi yonna kakati muyinza nti omuga nti walonda executive director tekisoboka tokiraba bannange mulimu ebintu byolabanga naawe okay kibibuzo bijja naye ngolaba kiba tekijja kati omugamba otya nti okay gavana yosobola omuappoint ne CDF akulira amagye g'eggwanga akulira poliisi yaba appointinga naye omuga nti eno airline siyo tosobola kumuappointinga kiba kizibu bambi kitalo nnyo okufiirwa General Tumwine ndoza era mujja kulaba story ye yasooka okukuba essasi eryasooka ng'olutalo lwa 8 okutuuka 86 lutandika e Kabamba abadde n'abeerako obuseera bwe twali tubayita army commander nze nakola naye emyaka egiwerako nga nze ndi muyambi we nga ye army commander abadde omuntu ayagala ennyo eggwanga lye abadde alyagala nnyo ekigambo eggwanga lye erya Uganda amagye abadde agakolera abadde agaagala era ndowooza mubadde mulaba abamu nga muga nti General Tumwine tava mu uniform yayingira mu kintu kyayagala amagye yali agaagala ng'amagye kuba waliwo abagayingiramu nti byonna biganye kamale gagendeyo naye ono yajja mu magye n'agakola ng'omulimu n'agaagala n'aganyumirwa kakati nammwe bannaye mbakubiriza bw'oba olina omulimu gwokola gukola ogunyumirwe nga General Tumwine kubanga omulimu gwabadde agunyumirwa naye kitalo naffe atugenzeeko naye ffenna lyekkubo enjawulo olunaku ki ogenda otya era ogenderawo naye nga ffenna lyekkubo naye Mukama musasulemu ebirungi ebyo byakoledde eggwanga n'abantu ate mu ekiwumulo ekyemirembe akatambi kange kali very clear nali nkubira bannayuganda mulango ogutakungula nti bannange Uganda Airlines eno kintu kyaffe nyonyi yaffe ya ggwanga teri batalina bizibu industry zonna zibaamu n'ebizibu naye bwabeerawo akazibu akali mu Uganda Airlines tulemera tekasasa amazannyo kubanga ne betukompitinga nabo mu industry eyo kibakolera kati bwe mwogerera Uganda Airlines obubi neyandigirinnye takola ki tagirinnya ate awo tuba tufiirwa kati eri abakuba gudikudde ti Uganda Airlines tejja kola ki tejja kusurvivinga naye tujja kusurvivinga kubanga commitment weeri omanye ekyo kinjukiza waliwo edda nga tukyali mu ntalo eza konyi n'abalala waliwo abantu baga nti UPDF eremeddwa balete UN netugaa nti tetujja kuleeta UN mu ggwanga lyaffe UPDF ejja kukola ki ejja kuyimirira era UPDF nemala kakati yerimu ku magye agasinga amaanyi ku African continent kati ne Uganda Airlines ebizibu bino bye tulimu tujja bivaamu era tujja kubivaamu n'amaanyi ate tufune n'ennyonyi endala tweyongere okukola tusaba mugyongere No, it's not grounded. Let me clarify. An aircraft being grounded is one thing. That means it's not functional. The aircrafts are functional. However, I can tell you this. For that aircraft, because some people have been saying, why did you bring in aircrafts before you had got the operators and the personnel to operate it. There are procedures. For that aircraft even to fly from here to wherever it's going to be, the regulator, who's CAA, must certify it. Now, for every person working on that aircraft must be certified by the regulator. Because, including the cabin crew, there are drills which they do on that aircraft before they can give them a certificate. So that's one. They went through that process, and all of the personnel have been certified to working on the Airbus. Now, the issue of going to other destinations, we don't determine, we make requests, but the decision for that country to accept or not to accept, it's up to them. It's not us. It's not that we have made so many applications to London, to Mumbai, to Guangzhou, and until to Jeddah. If they don't respond in positive, we can't force ourselves. You don't pick an aircraft and just fly into somebody's air sky without him saying, now you can come. So that is the process. It's a process and it's underway.
So it means you are waiting for approval?
Yes, for some of these we are just waiting for approvals from Mumbai, from London, from Guangzhou and Beijing.
And from where you sit, how much are we losing because of...
Of course we are losing. We are losing because, for example, in London, the London route, there's so many people in the diaspora who are really tired of going connections from London to Dubai to where they would love to have a direct flight. That's one. If we had a direct flight, for example, to London, and we export our fresh foods, yeah, even if we take 20 passengers on that Airbus and we take full cargo, it is worth the journey. So we are pushing. We are through many ways. We are going through the embassy. We are dealing with the ambassador here, the UK ambassador here. We are appealing to our embassy also to make because most of what UK had required, we have achieved it. Yes.
General, from there, comparison with the death of the late General then a brief summary of what has transpired in
But I want to join the rest of the Ugandans in mourning General Tumwine, one of our most gallant soldiers who participated fully in the Liberation War from 1980 to 1986. For me, General Tumwine, we trained together in Munduli. We were cadets together. I worked with him when he was the army commander. I worked with him. I was his aide-de-camp. I know his commitment to work. I know his commitment to the nation. He has been a dedicated servant, a very, very dedicated servant. So we shall really miss him. And he's one person who loved his job. He loved the army with a passion. That's why sometimes people are saying General Tumwine is always in uniform, because he loved what he was doing. He loved the profession. And he led the army at a time when we were not yet even properly structured, but he was able to lead the army. So we shall miss him as a fellow combatant. We shall miss him as one of my cadet mates and course mates. And of course, as a UPDF, we shall miss him as a general.
General, the issues that have been raised in the committee, you've been live for failing to conduct credible interviews.
Yes, the committee has raised the issues of why did we follow Directive to appoint the CEO. But I was sharing with them that the president, the executive arm, he has the powers. The Constitution gives him those powers. And it is unthinkable that when he makes a decision and selects a person, then you are going to go back and say, why? How? I mean, if I was just sharing that if he appoints people like the Governor Bank of Uganda, Chief Justice, what about a CEO? The only thing maybe which I saw and which Honorable Swambi was talking about was that yes, we should now make sure that all that is done according to the Company Act. That one I agree. We shall follow them.
On the issue of the salaries, qualifications, what have you done?
The salaries and qualifications, there's already a team which we put in place in May to go and do a manpower audit to look at how well is the Uganda Airlines manned, because there are standards which we must meet. For example, on the Airbus, I think there's a provision that they must have a crew not less than 3 sets of crew. So we have to look at how is the institution now in terms of manpower, in terms of salaries. Are the salaries adequate? Are they overpaid? And if they are so, who? And then look at the structure. So they are doing that work, and within September they'll be able to give the report.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ebibuuzo oba just nze njogere byange just. Amtulaki. Omanyi kigambo amtulaki tekitegeeza mu Lutoro. Who knows Lutoro here? I don't know. Sajuna like ina information. Okay, so muli ready? Tandike? Okay, so olunaku lwa leero tukyaziza General Katumba Wamala, Minister wa Works, ku nsonga za Uganda Airlines. Lwaki ministry ye supervising oba yerungamya Uganda Airlines, era yeteekawo board n'ebirala. Ate n'ekirala, ba shareholders aba Uganda Airlines bali babiri, Ministry ya Finance ne Ministry ya Works, 50%, 50%. So tumuyisenga shareholder, era atunyonyole ku nsonga ezimu. Kwebyo bitumutaddeko kuninga atunyonyole yengeri mukyala Jennifer Bamutulaki gye bamuwa omulimu, kubanga ye agamba nti nafuna directive okuva ewa M7 era nga sina kyekikolera, naye tumubuuza nti kale directive weba yajja mwagitambulirako nga mugoberera amateeka, kubanga waliwo abantu 40 abateekamu applications. Abantu bano tibaba wamwaganya nga deadline tenaggwa, byonna ne babiyimiriza, omulimu ne baguwa ono. Ate nekizuulibwa nti ono gwe baawa omulimu talina bisaanyizo biwera, alina degree emu eya bachelors. Ate mu human resource manual yaabwe kiraga nti omuntu okubeera CEO alina okuba nga alina degree esookerwako neddako masters oba ki, ebitabirina. So oba oli awo yensonga lwaki bali bonna babalemesa okukola interviews, ono atakola interviews ne bamuwa omulimu. Of course yalaga nti munaye ate nalikoze eki naki, naye ffe tugamba nti minisita ono yali alina obuyinza. So kati oli bwakuwa order webanga teri mateeka oba tolina giteeka mu nkola, otherwise kiba kikulya. So kati byabadde agamba nti kakati mugende mubuuze mu M7 oba kinedda ku mpapula ani ali in charge. Yono minister sotayinza tugamba nti waliwo yakozesa ensobi. Kale wabanga waliwo yakozesa ensobi, naye ensobi eventually gwogikoze era nga gwe tuba tuvunaana. Of course n'ensonga endala ebigenda maaso mu Uganda Airlines n'abakozi abalala abatalina bisaanyizo biwera, atugambye nti bali mu kugoberera, bataddewo akakiiko okulondoola okulaba abo abatalina bisaanyizo biwera, then eventually balongoose Uganda Airlines. Katulinde tulabe oba ekyo kinaateekebwa mu nkola, naye naffe mu ripooti yaffe tujja kulaba tunateekamu, kubanga twagala Uganda Airlines ekuli. Tulina byensomako eyo, waliwo abanene mu gavumenti abagamba nti Ssenyonyi agezaako kulemesa byanfuna, alemesa Uganda Airlines. Ssenyonyi n'akakiiko kakulembera tugezaako kulaba nti kitongole kino kikola bulungi. Ebikiremesa abakozi abatalina bisaanyizo, ababba ssente, procurement nga tebagoberedde mitendera naki, abo be twagala abakangavule, abo be balemesa ebyenfuna by'eggwanga ne Uganda Airlines. So siffe ate abagezaako okwanika abantu bano nga twagala bakolebweko ng'amateeka bwe gagamba. Any question you want me to answer? So twaengage era ne minister n'atusaba nti kakati Bamutulaki musooke bumuleke, yakola ensobi yabanyiiza n'atawandika mu budde naki, naye nze nga minister nsaba mutuweeyo ku ka time, kubanga bakyalina bye bakwasaganya. Ffenaffe tuli bantu, oli bwagamba nti alina byasooka okukwasaganya asabayo ku budde, tuba tusobola okubumuwa. Naye ensobi yaliwo, ono teyatubuulira mu budde, kwegamba alinga ataatubalaamu. Meeting erina okuba nga etandise, awo ebbaluwa n'eryoka ejja. Lwaki tobeera mu buntu n'ogaa nti kale kambabuulire nga olunaku terunatuuka. So ebyo nabyo tubyengaginga tulabe biri byakwasaganya bigenda twala bbanga ki, kubanga waawo naffe ng'akakiiko tetulina bbanga ddene nnyo, tulina okumaliriza ekitongole kino ate tudde ku bitongole ebirala. So tugenda kubalansinga tulabe. Minister of Finance nabo batuwandiikidde nga bagamba balina engagements nyingi ze bagezaako kukwasaganya buli minisita alina waali, ne bagamba tebasobodde kujja, naye era tujja kufuna obudde obulala kubanga tetugenda kukkiriza muntu yenna kwebalama kunoonyereza. Buli bwe kikwatako eventually ajja kujja wano atunnyonnyole kubanga zino munnaye sente za muwa omusolo. Anything else? Okay. So today we hosted the Minister of Works, General Katumba Wamala, in two capacities. One as the supervising ministry of Uganda Airlines, but two as one of the shareholders. Uganda Airlines has two shareholders: Ministry of Finance 50%, Ministry of Works 50%. And so it was important that we engage regarding those issues. We, of course, dug out a couple of things. The appointment of people. We noticed that Jennifer Bamuturaki was appointed apparently based on a directive. We put it to him that even when you have a directive, it should follow due process. Okay? If the directive does not follow due process, you are liable yourself because you're the officer in charge. We cannot say, now let's look for whoever gave you the directive. Why did you not advise whoever gave you that directive? Because you're the responsible officer. I think it's important that things get to be done the right way. And then it also turns out the person who was appointed without doing interviews, others were rejected. She has a bachelor's degree, but the Human Resource Manual talks about the job of CEO requiring a bachelor's degree and then another, master's or whatever the case might be. That is not in place, and several others. Okay, so we are telling him, look, do your job. Let's follow procedure as should be. And as a minister, and the ministry generally, they should keep their eyes on these entities. Otherwise, people are doing whatever they want to do. Procurement regulations are not followed. Things get to be in a tipsy-turvy manner. And then they end up saying, you see, Joel Ssenyonyi is an economic saboteur together with this committee. But Joel Ssenyonyi is helping you to deal with the economic saboteurs, the people who are stealing Uganda Airlines money, those who are hiring their own companies without following procurement guidelines, money that is unexplained, people hired that are not competent, and all of these different things. Those are the economic saboteurs that we should be going for. But by and large, I think that if these entities are to function, there must be minimum interference, okay? Orders coming from wherever, appoint so and so, appoint so and so. Let's follow procedure if we are serious about these entities functioning the right way. Ekyo kankyogere ne mu Luganda ekyo. Bwe tuba twagala ebitongole bino ebya gavumenti okukola bannayuganda babiganyulwemu, munaye tulina okukkiriza ebitongole bino ne systems zitambule nga bwe kirina okubeera. Naye kino ekyogamba ono mumuwa omulimu kubanga mumanyi oba mulinako akakwate, simanya nali mu lutabaalo ne taata we, oba mulinako Oluganda oba ki. Ebintu ebyo bye biremesezza eggwanga lyaffe okutambula nga ligenda mu maaso. Ebitongole bino birekebwe bikole emirimu nga bwe girina okutambula. Kale bo bakole ensobi nga bo tubavunaane. Naye kaakati bwe tuba tulabamu emikono egy'abantu abalala, ono yaweebwa omulimu si kubanga yali alina ebisaanyizo, naye lwakubanga waliwo yalemerako omuwa omulimu. Ate munnange ebyembi kubanga kikoleddwa bwe kityo, ne bano be bawa emirimu wakati naye alina kampuni gy'alinako akakwate gye yawa omulimu nga tagoberedde procurements. So kaakati alinga ayigira ku bakama be, naye omulimu bagumuwa tebagoberedde mitendera, n'asalawo nti kaakati nange engeri gye ndi wano kanfuneyo kampani gye nnaawo omulimu nga yange nze ngirinamu omukono nga tatambulidde ku mitendera. So kiviira ddala waggulu eri ne kikka wansi. Kati bwe twogera ku bintu bino nti kati abagezaawo kulemesa ggwanga. Okay. Yeah, so the ministers explained to us that there are a couple of engagements Uganda Airlines is trying to deal with, and so management is requesting for some more time. And for us, we were saying we are understanding people, but our challenge was that we were not regarded, that we informed